Oh, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is the Jizz, and in today's video, we're going to be revealing the 15 best mid laners for patch 12.1, which has dropped. And I hope all of you are having lots of luck at the start of season 12, because it can be pretty tough in the early season. But here we go, the top 15 mid laners. And if you guys do want to master any of the champions on this countdown, make sure to check out the GameLeap website linked in the description and comment section, because all of our challenger players and coaches are uploading up to 20 videos a week. So for that exclusive access, get signed up and let's get into it. Now, starting us off, we're going to start with Pyke in the mid lane, and thanks to that buff last patch where Riot buffed your Q's damage, it now does 100 damage at rank 1. This makes you a very scary champion in the early game, and because you are all about snowballing when you hit level 6, it just makes it a lot easier to do it. Also, the fact that teleport has been nerfed has kind of been a blessing in disguise for Pyke, because you are one of the best roamers. So someone who can roam around the map like Pyke, this is a real benefit. And you'll also notice here that I've actually recommended you guys to run teleport, and you can see this win rate, 56% in platinum and above when you run this, so it obviously works. This is going to keep you in the laning phase, because early on it can be kind of difficult until level 6, so we're staying in XP range, and once we do hit level 6, it's time to waddle off from the mid lane and get kills around the map. So Pyke is definitely a mid laner to consider. Now, ahead of Pyke, coming in at number 14, we have another champion who loves to roam around the map, even though his laning phase might be a little bit weak early on, and this is Echo. And another good thing about Echo this patch is that lots of mages are pretty strong. If we think about Viktor, Twisted Fate, Syndra, Orianna, these champions are getting picked a lot, and to be honest, for Echo, these are very free lanes. Your E and your ultimate makes it very hard to ever kill you and lock you down. You are very slippery, and you also deal a lot of damage and have one-shot potential once you get to your rocket belt and sorcerer shoes spike. So if you see a mobile skill-shotting mage on the other team, which are pretty popular at the moment, definitely lock in Echo. Also does really well against Zed. But beating Echo to number 13, this is one of those champions that has benefited greatly from the Archangel staff buff, so it's now costing 2600 gold, and for a champion in the mid lane like Cassiopeia, who relies on this in the tier stacking, this is monumental. This is why Cass's win rate is actually one of the highest out of all the mid laners, and thanks to the Conqueror stacking, which is still lasting 5 seconds, it makes it very easy to win your lane even more. But I will just say this, be careful about picking Cass into champions who do outrange you, or into Galio because of his innate magic resistance, so you might want to consider banning this champion. But even if you don't win the mid lane against these champions, your scaling is still unreal, and with Crown of the Shattered Queen, you are going to be unkillable in the late game while still being the biggest threat on the Rift. But maybe one champion in the mid lane for 12.1 who has a bit more carry potential than Cassiopeia, this is Fizz repping that 12th spot. Now for Fizz, with cooldown boots and Luden's Tempest, this combination is pretty disgusting, because the cooldown is going to reduce your Playful Trickster's cooldown, which is very important, gives you more damage and slipperiness, survivability, and the magic penetration, the one-shot potential you spike with when you do get to Luden's, makes you the deadliest champion on the Rift. And a bit like Echo and Pyke, because you are one of the premier roamers. You know, you can dumpster mid lane for sure, but when a Fizz is running down the river to the bot lane, you know that a double kill is probably on its way. And a bit like Echo as well, because lots of mages are pretty strong right now. As Fizz, because you are a mobile AP assassin, into these immobile ranged champions, if you can land your ultimate or get onto them, you are going to kill them for sure. And at all stages of a game, you are going to have kill threat. Even as early as level 3, you can sometimes solo kill these champions, so be very careful if you see a Fizz locked in the enemy team. But ahead of Fizz, we have the champion who Faker is abusing at the moment with close to a 90% win rate, and this is Vex. And for Vex, this champion gives you pretty much everything you ever want. You have really good wave clear and push potential, you have very good poke and harass, and you also have disengage. So if an assassin or engager ever jumps onto your head, you can just press your W, they get feared, and you're sweet. Also the reset in your ultimate, this is really OP, so you can get maybe 5 of these off during team fights. And also the fact that you have a variety of mythics to choose from, so whether you're going with Luden's Tempest, Everfrost, Crown of the Shattered Queen, into dive compositions and lots of assassins, this variety is very nice indeed. And also going Sorcerer Shoes and then Horizon Focus. Remember, you are bringing CC to the party, so when you land one of your basic abilities and that champion is feared, your combo after this, which is pretty much guaranteed because that champion is feared, is going to deal even more damage because of Horizon Focus's passive. Now, starting off the top 10, we have one of those champions who is going to love the teleport change, because this means for Pantheon, because of his Grand Starfall, this is a really big reason why Pantheon and some other mid laners we're about to reveal are currently loving 12.1, because most mid laners don't have an ultimate which can send them around the map, so they're just stuck in the mid lane while their bot lane fights, their top lane fights, whereas as Pantheon, because you're such a good roamer anyway, getting around the map now and influencing these fights is going to have a bigger impact, because you're one of the few champions who can just point and click and aim their ultimate wherever you please. Other champions to get to these fights are going to have to TP to their towers and be 10-20 seconds away when you're already there killing their team. So this is a really big bonus, but also the fact that Pantheon is a point and click, really easy to play champion, and to be honest, difficult to beat. Even into some of these hard matchups, be careful because Pantheon has kill threat pretty much at every stage of the game. A bit like Fizz, if he can get onto to your head he is going to win that 1v1, so you really have to have your wits about you and play pretty much perfectly to avoid any of this early game threat. And if you do manage to get a lead on Panth, which should be easy enough, it is all but GG. But beating Panth to number 9 on the countdown is Corki, who is slowly turning into an AP spellcaster rather than an immortal shield bow damage dealer with auto attacks, because with Corki you don't have the best range in the game. So if you are still going shield bow, please stop. It's time to go Luden's Tempest. And this build, I know it's been out for a while, but it's super strong on Corki because of all the magic damage you have in your kit, and it makes you a lot safer to play. So now you're more like an artillery mage playing from the backline, throwing out rockets on repeat, and when you pair this with Muramana and Ravenous Hydra and with Sorcerer Shoes, it's a sick combination. But just one thing, please make sure to run exhaust in your game. Way too many players are running TP, maybe barrier. The enemy champions are going to want to jump on your head. Exhaust means they can't, and this is going to keep you safe during the laning phase so you can scale into the late game beast you're going to be, and when you do maybe side lane or 1v1 an enemy champion in the late game, you are going to be impossible to beat in the 1v1 just because you have the summoner spell and this build behind you. But maybe one champion, if he does get onto you in the late game, can be a big problem for Corki, and this is Yona coming in at number 8. And not much has really changed for Yona. Even though shield bow has been nerfed so there's less AD and the shield isn't going to be as big, you know, the shield is still big enough and you've still got enough AD to do what you want to do. Also, the fact that the bonus attack damage you get when the lifeline passive procs, this is really the key here, because you're going to lifesteal more because you have more AD and damage. So it's still very hard to kill a Yona, and because your scaling is just bonkers. When you get shield bow, infinity edge, and whatever else after this, like it doesn't matter if you're 0-10, get to 20-25 minutes, that is your power spike regardless of your score. And I'm sure we all agree here the late game Yona is pretty disgusting, but getting to that point can be difficult, so that's why we're taking second win with unflinching in our runes, so we can get out of the laning phase a bit like Corki, get to our mid to late game and take over. But one champion who's going to have way more impact in a game in the early game than Yona and Corki, this is Galio coming in at number 7, and just like I mentioned about Pantheon, Galio, because of your kind of global ultimate, it makes you even more of a force in the mid lane and around the map. Other champions, like I said, for Panth are going to be TPing to towers, whereas you're going to be ulting onto your teammate's head, keeping them safe and winning those all-important early game team fights. And as far as your runes go, the most consistent pages are the one you can see right here, so with Aftershock, and then running Nimbus Cloak. This is super useful because if we flash and then taunt, we have the movement speed from Nimbus Cloak to get close to the enemy champions, taunt them, Everfrost, easy kills. But just ahead of Galio coming in at number 6, this is another really good scaling champion, and this is Kayle, but lots of people on Kayle are still going lethal tempo. Guys, please go press the attack. You don't need lethal tempo in the late game to be useful and a carry on Kayle. What we want to do is get out of the early game, so the laning phase, without dying more than 15 times. So press the attack is going to give us a bit more trading potential and survivability. The enemy champion isn't going to be able to just butcher us out of lane free of charge. We can actually fight back with this setup, so getting to Nash's Tooth, Riftmaker, Deathcap, whatever it is we're building, we can get there in most games, and then that's where we become the hyper carry and start to dominate. But a champion who might like to play against Kayle in the mid lane and dominate in the early game, this is Lux coming in at number 5, and ever since Riot buffed Lux at the end of season 11, so there's 4 buffs that came in, to her ultimate, to her E, and God knows what else. So her ultimate being on a 60-second cooldown at level 6, her E dealing more damage, like this is enough. Pair this with Luden's Tempest, Sorc Shoes, the magic penetration, the one-shot potential, land 1 light binding, they're gone. And this ultimate buff, this is why in our runes we're running Ultimate Hunter, of course, because we want more ultimates to get off. And even by the mid game, we can probably use 1 ultimate per minion wave. That's how broken that buff was. But do be careful into some assassins. As you can see, these are some of the toughest matchups for Lux, so if the enemy picks Diana, Talon, Kiana, be very careful indeed, and I'd highly recommend running Exhaust into these matchups so you don't get cut during the laning phase. And also save your light binding for when they jump onto you. But ahead of Lux coming in at number 4, who's another champion who does struggle into these AD assassins in the mid lane, this is Kassadin. But for Kassadin, there are just so many matchups that you do well into. He counters pretty much every mage we've talked about on this countdown, and despite the recent nerfs, he is still a weapon of mass destruction. With Crown of the Shattered Queen as his mythic, and with the Archangel Staff buff, so it's 400 gold cheaper, now 2600 gold like I mentioned for Cassiopeia, the other Cass is also enjoying this. Just remember to max your E first, and probably pick Kassadin when the enemy mid laner in that champ select has picked a mage and not an AD mid laner, because you are going to cut yourself. Now starting off the top 3, we do have a champion that Kassadin would love to play against, who for so many patches in a row now has been one of the most successful mid laners on the Rift. And there are a couple of reasons for this. Well, the main one is the Archangel Staff is 400 gold cheaper, and for a mana abuser like a Nivea, this is crucial. But to be honest, a Nivea really hit her stride ever since Riot buffed her a year ago. So they increased her missile speed, her auto attack animation, and they also made it so that if you just clip an enemy champion with your Q, you don't even have to stun them, the frostbite damage from your E is doubled. So she's actually one of the strongest laners in the game. Despite being one of the hardest to play, it's well worth putting the time into her at the moment. And just a little thing here about your runes, running Relentless Hunter is crucial. We don't have the movement speed, mobility, so we are very accessible to mobile champions. So Relentless Hunter is going to give us the mobility to navigate our way around these teamfights. Now the top 2 champions for this countdown, if any of you were going to argue with the first 13 we've been through, then surely you cannot argue with these top 2. Now coming in at second place, we have Viktor, who has been the standout mid laner for the preseason, and to be honest, even for 12.1. Like the amount of games here, look at this, in Platinum and above, over 12,000 matches, and that's with over a 52% win rate. That's even with people probably first timing him. That's just how strong he is. You can pick him up, win games because he's so broken. We're Crown of the Shattered Queen, and then rushing Shadow Flame because lots of champions in the game have shields, and also because it's giving you a nice amount of AP and also HP, which is a very underrated stat for Viktor. It gives you the survivability while still giving you the damage to one-shot enemy champions. And for your runes going first strike still, this is probably still the way to go. Proccing this with your death rate, it's super easy. So Viktor for another patch is still a top 2 mid laner, but the champion beating him to number 1 makes me very excited because I have not mentioned this champion as the number 1 mid laner for a couple of years now, and this is Twisted Fate, and I wonder if you guys can tell me why. Well, that's right, teleport has been nerfed big time in the first 14 minutes. So for TF, when you hit level 6 around 5.5 minutes to 6 minutes, when you have your ultimate available, you can maybe get 3 to 4 of these off before the 14-minute mark. So when TP turns into Unleashed Teleport and champions can actually TP to minions and wards and all that, well for Twisted Fate, before that point, your ultimate is point and click. Choose anywhere on the map, within range of course, and you will TP there, and you're just instant in a fight. Your impact is right there. You don't have to TP to a tower. There is nothing delayed about it. So this is a massive advantage you have. Just like the other champions like Pantheon and Galio I mentioned, who can roam around the map with one of their abilities, it's a huge plus. Now the laning phase against certain champions for sure is going to be rough, but to be honest, even if you just give up the lane and hit level 6 without dying too many times, roaming to bot lane or top lane, whichever lane is winning, it is going to be huge. And you can see here in your runes, when you're running Ultimate Hunter with Electrocute, it's just a very powerful combination because lowering your ultimate's cooldown, who doesn't want this given the teleport change? So make sure you play Twisted Fate this patch, guys, and I'd love to know what you think of this 15 best mid laners countdown. Let me know in the comments, and if you did enjoy the video, leave a like down below, and until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Jizz.